This is a Federal News Network podcast.
The very brief shutdown that started within the parts of the Transportation Department is now over. Members of Congress agreed to reauthorize the Highway Trust Fund that funds several DOT agencies during a vote on Saturday, but that's about all that got done. Agreement is still elusive on the big federal spending questions, including the infrastructure bill, the president's Build Back Better package, not to mention annual appropriations bills for the fiscal year that just started last week. Here to bring us up to speed on where things stand is Lauren Duggan, Deputy News Director at Bloomberg Government. Hey, Lauren, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So let's start with the infrastructure bill, of which that Highway Trust Fund issue was originally wrapped up in. They broke that off separately just to extend it while they continue to haggle over everything else. But where do things stand with the rest of these issues?
Yeah, that's right. The infrastructure bill is a $1.2 trillion package over several years, and part of the core of it is a reauthorization of highway transit and safety programs that they typically do every 5 years or so. They had already kicked that down the road for a year, and the time had come to do that again. That's wrapped up in the infrastructure package. Had they had that vote by Thursday night, like they had originally intended, everything would have been fine. Once that vote was delayed, however, that caused a problem for the DOT agencies that receive an authorization through there. And unlike some authorizations that don't matter, this one really does, because without the ability to spend money from the trust fund, you can't pay the salaries of the people who do this work. You can't necessarily send money to the state. So a lot of downstream effects. So that shut down a little after midnight on Friday, but by the House passing a bill Friday night and then the Senate clearing it on Saturday, that reopened those agencies for a month while they figure out what to do on the larger package. That month deadline may give a new deadline as well to doing something on that infrastructure package, which passed with bipartisan support in the Senate, came over to the House, and is really mired in the debate over what to do over the larger spending package, though how large that is under debate and probably something we'll touch on later. But there wasn't enough support within the Democratic caucus, and even cobbling together the Republican votes there may have been, to get that over the line last week. So what they'll be doing over the next several weeks is figuring out how to get that bill over the line with this other package.
So no real prospect of any near-term action on either of those big infrastructure bills, right? I mean, we're basically where we were on Friday when it looked like there might be something happening, but there's really no new deadline in place, not even a soft deadline. It looks in terms of when leadership wants to get something done here.
I would say on the physical infrastructure bill, the $1 trillion plan with $550 billion in new spending, they're penciling in October 31st for that, again, because the programs expire. The bigger package, there's really not a deadline other than if there's a line in the sand that you have to move them together, then that would suggest next month might be it. But assembling a bill of the size that they're talking about, squaring away all the details, getting everyone on board, you could easily see that going more than a month. So, one of the questions here is, what do they need to have with the bigger package to allow infrastructure to move forward? Is it a table of contents or an agreement on what the policies will be? At the very least, they need to agree probably on a top line number for that bill, which is part of the dispute at the moment, and that could allow that to move forward. But what may concern some people is there was already a date written down, September 27th, to take up the infrastructure package, and that slipped by a couple of days, and then they pulled that vote altogether. So the deadlines are a little softer than some people would like, and the fact that one of them has come and gone without it actually resulting in a vote has caused problems in the Democratic caucus.
And going back to what you teased up for us a second ago, is there any more clarity, or is it starting to become clear what the size of this second overall package might end up being?
It's not totally. Joe Manchin has floated a $1.5 trillion number. He wrote that down on a piece of paper. But it's not just a number. In that number are the policies that will cost money to add up to that, and then also policy that could save money on the mandatory side and allow you to spend more. The top one there is allowing Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices and other provisions related to that. That's come into some problems on the House side where some moderates haven't agreed to it. So, if they could have that $700 billion, that would allow them to spend more. If they don't have it, it may deepen their problem in trying to find a way forward here. So there's a lot of complicated arithmetic going on here with adding up the cost of programs and then subtracting out either the tax increases or other spending changes. So a lot to figure out for Democratic leaders.
And let's talk about annual appropriations bills. Is there any clear path forward on those before we get to the next December 3rd deadline?
There's not. There's time. Obviously, 9 weeks is a good chunk of time as opposed to these other issues we were talking about. We have a continuing resolution in place. We don't have a handshake agreement between the House and the Senate and Republicans and Democrats on how much to spend. One complication is these other spending packages that we're talking about, even though they're outside of annual appropriations, they're on the mandatory spending side. There's still some pressure there. How much do you want to put in annual bills when you're spending money over there? And there could be calls to reduce some of the costs in the annual bills. So the one consensus we've seen on the authorization side is on defense, where both chambers, the House as a whole, and then the Senate Armed Services Committee agreed to spend about $25 billion more than the president wanted on defense programs. If that holds up as a consensus, that may help the process move forward. But an agreement on the non-defense side is a little trickier, and pretty much everything we're talking about here is on the non-defense side in terms of highways and social services programs, climate change, and all the like there.
Yeah, it seems to me under that situation, what you might end up with hypothetically is they pass defense appropriations bills, get those through, and leave the rest of the government operating under a CR, which certainly has happened before.
It has, but you could see Democrats fighting back because they like to have defense. You vote for the defense increase, I vote for the non-defense increase, and we get the whole boat lifted and over the line. So, that's another issue they'll be working on very closely in the next coming weeks. But the most pressing thing, we haven't touched on it yet, is the debt limit, which needs to be increased sometime this month, according to the Treasury Department. And that's, I think, where a lot of the initial focus is going to be, even with the House mostly away on committee work weeks the next 2 weeks, and the Senate scheduled to be out next week for the holiday week. We'll have a lot of discussion over the coming weeks on what to do on the debt limit, and that's going to raise specters of spending not only on annual basis but also on these two packages. So I think spending is very much in everybody's focus these next couple of weeks.
You bet. All right, Lauren Duggan, Deputy News Director at Bloomberg Government. Thanks a lot, Lauren.
Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to the Lessons in Leadership podcast. I am your host, Shane Canfield, CEO of WEPA. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Vice Admiral Cutler Dawson. Cutler has had an incredible career serving our country for 35 years in the Navy, where he attained the rank of Vice Admiral. And during his service, he had numerous assignments afloat and ashore, including Commander, 2nd Fleet, Striking Fleet Atlantic, and in Washington at the Pentagon and on Capitol Hill, where he was the Navy's Chief of Legislative Affairs. Immediately following his retirement from active duty in 2004, he became the president and CEO of Navy Federal Credit Union, the world's largest credit union, where he served for 14 years. Under his leadership, Navy Federal grew from 2 million to 8 million members. Phenomenal. Cutler, welcome and thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Shane.
You've had a fascinating career across both military and the private sector. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background and your professional journey?
Well, I started out at the Naval Academy, where I graduated in 1970, and then, as you mentioned, spent 35 years in the Navy with 6 actual afloat commands. The first one was when I was 27 years old. I didn't know enough to be scared of anything, and it was probably one of the highlights of my career. And then after I retired, after 35 years, I went to work at Navy Federal Credit Union as the CEO, where I spent my next 14 years. I'm currently retired and enjoying life, and it's been a great run for me.
How would you describe your leadership style, and how's that developed over the years?
My style has been quite consistent. I believe, and I've learned this in the Navy, that you have to go to the deck plates to see what is going on. And you have to learn what your people do and how they do it, so you can help them to be better at it and more efficient and more productive. It's something that you need to do all the time. I remember I used to tell folks that you don't want to retreat to your cabin. And what I mean by that is the longer you're in a position, the less you think you have to get out and about. But that should be the opposite. You should get out and about more, because people change, situations change, and you've got to figure out a way to get to them and find out what they're doing and what you can do to help them.
We'll talk a little bit more about your book, but I read it, From C to the C-Suite. Fantastic read. You talk about the deck plates in that as well. I would encourage everyone to get a copy of this and read some more detail about going to the deck plates. Cutler, who was the most impactful leader in your life, and what quality did you admire about them?
I had numerous while I was in the Navy, but the quality that I enjoyed the most was the leaders that got to know me as an individual, and that they cared about me, and I could tell that they cared about me. And they were not only my leaders, but they were my mentors. And I remember one particular one, Bill Schiffer, when I had my first assignment at the Pentagon. I would go in to see him with my problem of the day, and I knew that he had numerous problems of his own, but he would stop and he would focus on me, and he would make me feel like I was the most important person in his world. And I tried to do that throughout my career, but really it's about caring for your people.
Cutler, in reading your book, there was a quote you used to inspire those people that work for you. And it really got my attention. And it was, you are the captain of your own ship. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about what that means and how it was useful to you and the leaders you were developing.
Absolutely. What I mean by captain of your own ship, when you are the captain of a ship, sometimes you're in the middle of the ocean and you don't have anybody to turn to make decisions. You don't have anybody to turn to ask, what should I do now? You have to be the captain of that ship. And I translated that into, let's say, Navy Federal's organization, where I would tell branch managers that I said, you are the captain of the ships of Navy Federal. You're the ones that are facing the members or customers, as others call them, every day. And you have to make decisions without a lot of guidance in some cases and without a lot of time. So be the captain of your own ship. Step up, make decisions, do what you think is right, and you never can go wrong.
I think that is so important. And you have to give your people a little bit of latitude to take some risk as well, because there is risk for them in doing that and risk to your organization.
That's right. And I mentioned that I took command of my first ship with 5 years in the Navy, and I was 27 years old. Well, my boss had 32 years in the Navy, and his guidance to me when I first met him was, Cutler, you do the right thing and I'll back you up all the way. What a wonderful way to spend an assignment with backup and guidance like that.
What great advice. It's clear leadership is a topic you're passionate about. You wrote the book we mentioned before, From C to C-Suite. Can you tell us a little bit about that project?
Yes, when I was at Navy Federal, I would tell sea stories as parables to get my point across. And folks would tell me, Cutler, we like your stories. It gives us a picture of what you're trying to tell us. Now, what else are they going to say? They work for me, but I took it as a compliment, and it was. And my wife encouraged me to write a book, and I needed a co-author to help me. And I found a lady named Taylor Keelan, who was the perfect co-author. She turned in my stories into wonderful chapters that I'm very proud of.
Where can listeners find a copy?
Well, you can get it on Amazon, and you can also get it on the Naval Institute website. And I might add that any proceeds from the book, Navy Federal uses to give to charity.
Fantastic. Cutler, thank you very much. Really enjoyed your time and your lessons in leadership and sharing with us your life story. And I've learned a lot, both from talking to you today and reading your book. And thank you very much for your time.
It's my pleasure. And I would like to add one thing, if I could, Shane. During my assignments in Washington, D.C., I gained the utmost respect for the civilians that work here every day. They're hardworking, they're dedicated, and they have my eternal gratitude. I got to come and go from the Pentagon. They stayed every day and worked in Washington when I got to go out and enjoy being at sea.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, WEPA serves civilian federal employees, but Your comment is well taken because the interaction between the two is continuous, it's nonstop, and it's critical. So the career civil servants, as well as career military, our country would not be where it is today without them.
I totally agree. And I can tell you from the U.S. Navy standpoint, we couldn't operate like we do without them being the backbone of what we do.
Thank you very much for your time today, Cutler. And to everyone listening to Lessons in Leadership podcast, we'll see you next time.
Angie's List is now Angie, A-N-G-I, and caring for your home just got easier. Whether you need help with routine maintenance or a dream remodel, Angie makes it easy to see reviews, compare quotes, and connect with top local pros who can get the job done right. Plus, you could see upfront pricing and instantly book hundreds of projects. No phone tag, just the work you need done at a time that works for you. Angie's got your to-do list covered from start to finish. Book your next home project today at Angie.com. That's ANGI.com.
Now is the best time to start working at Amazon. They are offering sign-on bonuses up to $3,000 and hourly pay up to $22 per hour. You'll bring home a great weekly paycheck, and many jobs come with benefits that start on your first day. That's higher pay, sign-on bonuses, benefits day one. And you'll be part of a safe and inclusive workplace ranked among the best in the world. Go to Amazon.com/apply to start your job search today. Amazon is proud to be an equal opportunity employer.